Cincinnati.com Sports Beyond the Stripes with Paul Daugherty, presented by JoeSfato.com. We are here live at the Moerlein Lager House tonight. Great to have everybody here with us. I'm Paul Daugherty Jr. Our special guest tonight, Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver Dane Sanzenbacher, also here with us. Let's hear it for Dane. Of course, I have my friends here with me. We're friends, right?
That's making an assumption on your part, but yeah, you know.
We can be
Plus,
friends.
we're not friends after last week.
This is true. After the incident that occurred last week, we all are attempting to recover and not let anything like this happen. We don't want to harm Joe Reedy. He's our beat writer. We cannot have another football off the face like we saw last week.
That's true.
Why not?
This is true. What else can we fire at Joe?
Well, I get plenty of verbal barbs and stuff fired at me, so.
This is true. Just check his Twitter timeline at Joe Reedy. You'll see those. Paul Daugherty here with me. Doc, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Better than the men, I think.
Yeah, I think of the four of us probably are after 20-17 in Baltimore. Doc, you were there with me. It was not the prettiest, although it added to the latest of the absurd season that we have seen. Every game is more ridiculous than the last. This one with a Hail Mary.
They are very entertaining, put it that way. Whether you're a fan or not, I guess depends on how much entertainment you get out of these games. But every one of them has something weird happening. You're right. And the bottom line, again, if you do not get good quarterback play in this league, you are not going to win a lot of football games.
No doubt. Look around the NFL, by the way. A lot of bad quarterback play last week. A lot of guys struggling. Lindsey Patterson here with me as well. Lindsey, of course, you have the pulse of the nation, of Bengals Nation. You've heard from the fans. You know everything that they're thinking. What are the fans saying right now? What you can repeat
Can I say
anyway.
that right now?
Whatever you can repeat.
A lot of fans not happy with Andy Dalton's play, and how can you be right now? Back-to-back games with 3 interceptions. You have a pick 6 against Miami. You know, poor decisions on Andy's part, and his interceptions are sometimes unbelievable. You know,
Right.
His play is unbelievable. I think, a lot of blame. The blame game is going around in Cincinnati right now.
The blame game is always going around in Cincinnati.
That's true.
It doesn't matter what
Win or
team.
lose,
It doesn't matter who it is. There's always the blame game going on. Nobody knows that better than Joe Reedy, who fields every single blame game question. Joe, as you were right next to me and Doc, there in Baltimore, another ridiculous game. But what was your initial takeaway from that loss and sort of what it meant?
Well, I think when you look at it, it's good they came back. Third double-digit, second-half margin. They come back. It's a team that doesn't quit, but in the world of good job, good effort, that only gets you so far. 2 games, offense has struggled. Defense played well enough to win, but when your quarterback struggles, you commit that many turnovers, you commit a team record as far as penalties, then you're going to lose the game.
Yeah. Well, I think coming out of this game, the number one question that we have to ask, so let's set it up to the round table here. We were just praising this offense 2 weeks ago for all the strides it had taken, for how far it had come. This was the offense taking the next step. 2 weeks later, this question is asked. Does this offense need fixing, Doc?
I don't know how you fix it. What do you want to do, Paul?
Is it a change in play calling? Is it a change in strategy?
I sure would like to see something other than Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis off tackle on first down. Yeah, sure, you can always do that.
Is play calling, is it becoming too predictable?
Yeah, a little bit. If someone like me can sit upstairs and say, well, this time Green Ellis is going to get the ball, he's going to gain 2 or 3. They're going to throw a semi-horizontal pass. It's going to get 3 or 4 more, and then it'll be 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, and they might go downfield to a tight end. When it gets to that level, yeah, maybe it is a little predictable. If I can guess and be accurate about half the time what they're going to do, I think defenses are probably pretty good at that too.
But Doc, you are the preeminent expert on the men in this town. 25 years covering the team, you've seen it all.
Yeah.
You should know. You should be able to know what's coming next, right?
No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't know as well as the team's playing defense. I don't know if they need a shakeup. I just think that generally the offense needs to play better. How's that for expert analysis? And it's not just Dalton. The receivers did not have a lot of separation the other day. They didn't make it easy on the guy. everybody has to do the proverbial stepping it up a little bit, including the quarterback. And if you can figure out what the quarterback's going to do from week to week, you're a lot smarter than I am.
Yeah, it's been a tough road to hoe the last 2 weeks, Joe, for Andy Dalton. Where do you go from there?
Well, I think that he's got to improve in decision-making. He airmailed a couple passes, which was in bad winds, which in Baltimore we expect that in November and December. But Joe Flacco had a bad game, too. I think I joked that if Tom Amansky did an instructional video for quarterbacks, that would not be the game tape to view.
No.
I think we said at the beginning of the season, if you overly relied on A.J. Green, you had an ability to get in trouble. They targeted Eifert, Sanu, Jones a lot. They haven't made plays. Marvin the last two. There was that touchdown against Miami that got called back. Offensive line the last 2 weeks hasn't played well either. 10 sacks allowed the last two. I think the running game's got to be better too. 10 games in, not a 100-yard rusher. The balance is there a little bit, but also when your quarterback's thrown it 50 times or over, you're going to have a tendency to lose.
The question is then, Lindsay, is it fair to put all of this on Andy Dalton?
Not. Joe was talking about it. There's play calling. The receivers with so many drop balls, you can, say, you look back at a Marvin Jones multi-touchdown game, and where's he been? Where's the Marvin Jones we saw in that game? You can blame play calling. You can blame the offensive line. If Gresham's not in the game, they can't open the field up. They can't go in the middle. Maybe not having Gresham was bigger than we thought, even though he's made some boneheaded plays in previous games.
Well, I think having Jermaine Gresham is a big deal, but I thought Tyler Eifert had a pretty good game. The one ball he didn't catch in the end zone is one that they wish they could have back. But I don't think it was as big of a fall off as you thought. You saw more 3 wide receiver sets. They ran out of that, and they could have used a little bit more from other guys, absolutely. But sometimes there does tend to be the over-dependence on A.J. Green. Now, that's a good thing. And as we've said here before, it's almost crazy to say don't throw it to A.J. Green as much. But this team, when it gets behind, gets into the mode of get it to A.J., just throw it to A.J. When what makes them at their best is when everybody touches it. We saw that against New York.
Well, I think the defenses now are getting a read on it. They double A.J. and send people to put pressure on Dalton. Dalton is not like Ben Roethlisberger. He does not handle pressure well. Roethlisberger can make plays with his feet. He can get outside the pocket. He can create. He's as dangerous, or has in the past at least, has been as dangerous outside of the pocket as in. Once the play breaks down for Andy Dalton, he's not nearly as good at being creative. And I think you're seeing more and more teams figuring that out and putting the pressure on him, doubling A.J., making him go to other guys. And you guys are right. We've gotten production from Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu in the 2 tight ends, but it hasn't been consistent production. It hasn't been consistent enough to keep the other teams worrying about them almost as much as they worry about A.J. Green.
Yeah, and that becomes a thing of, is it then the offensive line, like you mentioned, Joe? I mean, it really is everybody. And I don't think it's fair to put it all on Andy Dalton. He receives all the praise when it's great, and he takes probably too much of the negativity when it's bad. The truth is he needs protection. And you can say that about most quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah, and I think the one thing is, too, the one area of Andy's game where I think has regressed a little bit, at the beginning of the season when things broke down, he would get rid of the ball. And he would live for another play. He hasn't done that the last couple weeks. And let's face it, before that Hail Mary, that 2-minute drive went as awful as you can script a 2-minute drive.
Yep.
Scramble, took the sack, luckily got to spike with 2 seconds left, and then the Hail Mary where A.J. figured, because he was checked a couple times, you know what, I'm going to try to make a play in the back and play the tip. Baltimore didn't have any receivers in the end zone, which was incredible, and he made the play. But he's got to be better at getting rid of the ball and living for another play, and he hasn't done that recently.
We've talked about making plays, guys being involved, the offensive line. We talked about a little bit of everything. A lot of this comes back to Jay Gruden about finding a way. JoeSfato.com drive of the game for me this week. Overtime, 10 plays, 36 yards. They end up with a 4th and 2 and decide to go for it. Jay himself told us just yesterday it was an awful play. It ended up being a terrible play because it didn't work. there was one player out there that blew the whole thing up. Otherwise, those screens, which have been working all day, Giovanni Bernard gets caught and it has to try and go, ends up being an 11-yard loss that pretty much sets the stage for the game-winning field goal for Baltimore. Lindsay, I guess my question is, how much of that falls to Jay, and did you see that as sort of the terrible play it turned out to be?
Maybe more of the third down play. I thought, what were you thinking there? Your 4th and 2, you lose yardage on it. I thought it was just a silly play. Maybe in your third down, that's kind of where the blame's going. I blame it more on the third down. If you can't go 2 yards in 2 tries, you really don't deserve to win that game.
Yeah. Here's the thing about that. I don't throw a horizontal pass when I need to get 2 yards. I got to get 2. I got to throw the ball downfield. But before that, and I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, if it were me, if I were Marvin Lewis, I'd have gone for 2 after the Hail Mary.
Right.
No question. I mean, the Ravens are on their heels defensively. They're wondering, what the hell just happened to us?
Right.
The Bengals are rolling. They're on a high. You win or lose it right there. And if they didn't get it that time, I wouldn't have blamed anybody.
And you don't know what's going to happen.
You go for 2 right there when the Ravens are still stunned. I mean, if you remember, when the Bengals got the ball after on overtime, their first drive, they moved the ball pretty well right away. I'm telling you, you go for 2. I know it's against, like, NFL coaches' law to take big chances like that where it's win everything or lose everything. But to me, you had them on their heels. They were stunned. You were hot. Go for it right there.
It would have been a pretty serious. You're Mr. Go for 2, though. You're Mr. Go for it.
Well, I'm Mr. Go for it on 4th down. Yes, they went for it 5 times on 4th down the other day. I didn't have a problem with any of them, and lots of people did. But on this particular occasion, yeah, I go for 2. I go for the kill shot right there.
That's some serious quick thinking to pull that off. I think the shock and amazement made it be an instant put the one finger up from Marvin. That would have been a pretty serious decision to make. Joe, would you go for 2 there?
No, I wouldn't, but Doc
That's because you hang around the NFL guys too long. They brainwashed you.
You got to hang around the video game Madden guys, and you coach like that.
But here's the shock. Paul Daugherty and Mo Egger agree about something because O was talking about going for 2. It was a quiet stadium. I could see some logic in it. I don't completely dismiss it. He makes it. Marvin's thought of in the same vein as General Patton. He loses, it's another in a long list of what we've had of second-guessing Marvin decisions.
No glory, brother.
You don't know what's going to happen in overtime. You don't know where you're going to be if you're going to ever get the ball back.
That's right.
Why not?
Go for it.
Ride the momentum, Doc says. Doc, you're just so tough.
It's easy for me to say sitting up here, but if you're ever going to go for 2,
I agree.
That's the logical time to do it.
That is the time to do it. That would have been some serious quick thinking. We'll discuss plenty more. We got to remind everybody that Dane Sanzenbacher is here, so we're going to bring him up here next. Also, if you have any questions for us on the show, or you want to say anything to us, just send it to #BeyondTheStripes on Twitter or /Cincinnati Enquirer on Facebook. We will field them all. We'll bring them to you. Lindsay will be monitoring the Twitters for us. But like we said, we're going to bring Dane Sanzenbacher up here next. We're going to talk to him about his fabulous career at Ohio State and the fact that he was brutally released by Chicago on Christmas Eve. Unbelievable. Anyway, we'll be right back here on Beyond the Stripes, presented by JoeSpotto.com.
Do not, I repeat, do not buy a 2013 Chevy from another dealer. Not when you can get a 2014 from Joseph Chevrolet for the same price or less. Seriously, Joseph Chevrolet's 2014s are a better deal than anyone else's 2013s. $129 a month for a new Cruise? Up to $6,500 off a 2014 Silverado? Now that's a clearance sale. Don't pay more for a 2013 than a 2014. Come to Joseph Chevrolet now.
Uncle Rain.
Where should we go to eat tonight?
How are the Reds doing?
What time does the movie start?
Did you hear about the new Bengals
Check
player?
out this photo gallery.
Did you check out the bands coming to the
shared
city?
That's
great. I missed the story.
She wore what?
If you don't read The Enquirer at Cincinnati.com, you're missing out on what everyone's talking about. Breaking news, the best local events calendar, and in-depth stories. Updated all day long. Subscribe now at Cincinnati.com/subscribe. The Enquirer at Cincinnati.com. It's what everyone's talking about.
All right. right, welcome back to Cincinnati.com Sports Beyond the Stripes of Paul Daugherty, presented by JosephAuto.com. Definitely want to thank everybody for coming out to the Moerlein Lager House here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Dane Sanzenbacher now joins us. Dane, thank you for coming up and joining us here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Let's go to Lindsay, because she's been monitoring the Twitter. She's got the question for Dane. What did the Twitters say that we can repeat to Dane as a question?
It's not that bad. Adam wants to know, when will we see your jersey at Paul Brown Stadium? And Ryan TR says, any chance you can start returning those kicks?
As far as well, actually, both of those are out of my hands. I don't know. As far as the pro shop, maybe returning kicks would help that one happen.
Yeah.
But, Tate's been doing a good job for us back there. It's on, Marv and the special teams coach Darren to make that call. But, if they need me, I'm ready to do something like that.
You still take reps in practice for returns and punts and things like that, though, right?
Yeah, still doing practice.
Yeah.
Something I had to do more in the preseason.
Yeah.
But, if they need me to fill that role a little bit, that's fine.
Now, nobody knows better, I wouldn't think, that this is a business than you. Why on earth would the Chicago Bears release you on Christmas Eve, ho, ho, ho? And the Bengals pick you up the next day, but why would any team do that to a guy? And what was your reaction when that occurred?
I think you guys are making it sound a lot more brutal than it was.
But it's Christmas Eve. Nobody does that.
Yeah, all right. I guess that was my real introduction to the NFL as being a business. But it's a tough situation, obviously, but I think it's worked out for the better for me in hindsight. If it was something that was going to happen eventually in Chicago anyway, might as well get that out of the way and started somewhere else on the back end of a season than to have to go through camp and everything there in the same situation. So, I think, it wasn't ideal at the time. And the drive down from Chicago to Cincy on Christmas Day wasn't all that glorious, but I'm happy it happened now.
No lovely parting gifts for you?
No.
Now, you went to Toledo Central Catholic, won a state championship in 2005 there, right? So did you grow up a Browns fan up in that area?
I didn't really have a pro team that I followed. We're closer to Detroit than Cleveland, so a lot of people lean that way, but it's such a mixed city. You got Steelers fans, you got Browns, it's all up there.
Now, tell me, is that 05 state title, where does that compare or rank for you as coolest sports moments that you've been a part of?
It's still up there for me. It still might be the top for me, to be honest.
Really?
Because I was 17 at the time. It's still one of those moments where you're not jaded by the game at all, for one, and it's all so brand new to you. We had no aspirations or hopes of being in a state championship game, and at that point, you were playing with guys that were your best friends. Not saying that you're not friends with the guys you played with through college, but those are kind of friends that are assigned to you. These were guys that you grew up with from day one, and to get to have that experience with them, it was pretty unreal.
Yeah.
All right, you're from Ohio. You played at Ohio State. You play for the Bengals now. Did you have a lot of family members go to the Horseshoe and go to Paul Brown Stadium for any of the home games?
Yeah, it's been nice on the family, travel-wise. Obviously, they made it down for all the college games. They were able to make some of the Chicago trip, but now being back in Ohio, it's nice to see all them, and I think they have more fun at the games than I do sometimes, so they've enjoyed it.
Now, you had familiarity with the Bengals coaching staff because during the Senior Bowl in 2011, they were the coaching staff when you were there. Just when you got claimed on Christmas Day, what was that conversation with Duke Tobin like? Did you expect, I got to learn the playbook quickly because there's a game in 4 days, or did they tell you this is kind of a move that we want to see what you can do for the next season?
I had no idea what their move was or their motivation behind it. I actually talked to Marvin that day before I made the drive down. It was nice to have some familiarity with the coaching staff. It kind of eased that transition a little bit, seeing familiar faces when I got here. But as far as why they made the move, we didn't really discuss that. It was more, when can you get here?
You have played with two quarterbacks kind of on the cusp of I don't know, greatness or very goodness. Jay Cutler.
Very goodness.
Very goodness. Jay Cutler and Andy Dalton. Can you compare and contrast the two?
I think they're much different, to be honest. Obviously, both good in their own right. Personality-wise, I think is big with quarterbacks, and obviously Jay and Andy are almost opposites. Not saying one is better than the other. Jay's obviously been in the public eye as being a guy who's very critical on his teammates.
Right.
And a lot of times that pulls out the best in guys. And Andy is such a nice guy that it's in him to be a positive influence on the players around him. So from that aspect, I'd say they're pretty different. Both make plays in the field. I think obviously Jay was, a gunslinger. He's came up all through college and the NFL, has been that guy who's gonna make the big plays and gets crucified for making the mistakes, but he's gonna take that chance. And Andy's always been that smart, pocket passer, intelligent guy that's, you can count on to make the right decision. So
who throws the better ball?
That depends what you're calling better. I mean, Jay has a rocket for an arm.
Right.
I mean, he can throw it as hard as anybody in the league. But Andy's got that touch and that finesse. So, it really depends what you're looking for.
We probably have a few Ohio State Buckeye fans that are here tonight with Dane in the house. So we would be remiss to not bring up the fact that you beat Michigan 4 straight years when you were there.
Yeah.
All by double digits, if my math is correct.
I don't know that. You would know better than I.
You did. So,
okay.
So I guess my question would be: does any game compare to Michigan-Ohio State?
It's tough. There's so much buildup around it that it's always a special game. When I was there, Michigan was in the transition. So, not to take anything away from them, but they weren't the 1-2 matchups of 2006, I believe it was. That was just the biggest game in the universe, in Ohio at least, that it was ridiculous. But when I was there, obviously in our minds, they were built up to be huge games. And so they always had a great atmosphere. When you got to play them at home, it was always senior day. I was lucky enough my senior year to have that Michigan senior day with the tunnel of former players and all that and the introductions. And so it's always special.
Do you think Ohio State should be number 2? No, I'm just joking. I'm not going to ask that. What was it like playing for Jim Tressel?
It was awesome. I really respect him as a coach, as a guy. It was a tough situation how he went out, obviously, but I have nothing but respect for him as a coach, and I think he brought out the best in his players.
When you started at Ohio State, had a couple good receivers there, Brian Hartline, Brian Robisky. Just what was it like learning from them, and then got to play for a couple years with DeVere Posey too?
It was great. I was lucky to be in the situation I was at. Even to be at a university like that, and that's one of the perks that comes along with it, is you get to play with and against the best. And I think that also went a long way in my transition to the NFL, because you're going in playing with guys like Brian Hartline, Robisky, guys that are established players. You're not just going to be thrown in and step into the spotlight. You kind of had to, earn your stripes around there. And I think you walk into an NFL locker room, there's nothing but talent. So I think it was a nice preparation.
We see that Johnny Manziel was accused of selling his autograph.
Yeah.
And our reaction now is these guys need to get paid, the NCAA needs to reform, so on and so forth. Terrell Pryor, a similar situation in which he is selling his autograph for tattoos or what have you, and we rip Terrell Pryor. Why is there a double standard on that, in your opinion?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's not a whole lot of consistency in how it's a tough situation, obviously, but I think if you look at the suspensions that happened at Ohio State, they came down really hard on them. Maybe it's because they were first and they were trying to set an example. Maybe it's because there's so many other things that have gone on that in the wake of Penn State, maybe now selling your autographs doesn't look like all that big a deal. So, okay, slap him on the wrist. It's his signature anyways. I don't know. I mean, it's a tough situation. Luckily, it's in the past now for Ohio State, and hopefully they're going to get their shot at the title.
Should you guys be paid?
No.
No.
I might be in the minority among players, but I think you're opening up a can of worms and changing the game if you start to pay college students. I mean, I'm not under the thinking that, I'm owed something because I was a college athlete. There's plenty of guys that paved the way before the guys that are playing now, that were in the video games, that weren't getting paid, that were making it on their scholarship checks. And, they made it through. And there was no discussion about the money. So that's my opinion. I mean, obviously a lot of the players think they should be getting money, but I think you should be careful.
Oh, that's cool. That's kind of a different take.
A refreshing one, because we all so consistently are belittled with the other one that you just have to keep feeding the kids money. I want to bring up something which is maybe one of the more famous moments of the entire preseason, which was your punt return. And John Gruden, I'm sure you've heard the call of him yelling how much he loves your name.
Yeah.
How much does that get repeated to you? Are people yelling this to you on the street as you walk by now if they recognize you?
It's starting to fade.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was saying before we went on, it started with Pryor's quarterback camp when I was still in college is when he really started all this. And I did not know he had, a love for my name until this point. And then it came back up on Monday Night Football, but I can't say it's hurt. I mean, it's definitely got the name out there, and it's nice to have a guy with the resume of John Gruden in your corner.
How odd was it though the first time someone yelled that at you? Were you confused, or are you just trying to? Were you trying to subdue it?
Well, it is my name. It's just how it's yelled, so it's not that weird when they yell it at me.
Yes.
I guess I'm not really taken back by it.
Do you feel like you got kind of a fresh start when the Bengals signed you?
Yeah, and that's why we didn't really discuss what their thinking on it was. And in reality, I'm not sure I really want to know or care what their thinking was. In my mind, it was a fresh start. And they've given me nothing but opportunities since I got here. So it's ended up being really awesome.
One of your highlights in college, that Rose Bowl game against Oregon, because people keep rapping the Big Ten for the style of football that they play, and for you guys to be able to beat kind of Nike U and all that. Was that one of the highlights?
Yeah, the Rose Bowl was awesome. I mean, aside from the game, the whole production that is the Rose Bowl was outstanding. I don't know if you guys have ever had a chance to go out there, but what they put on for the teams is by far, the best one or the best time we had in a bowl game. But yeah, I think the Big Ten's always going to get a bad rap for competition. I mean, in the time we were there, we beat Oregon, and then we beat Arkansas in the Sugar Bowl the next year, who does play in the SEC. But all of a sudden, now they're not a good SEC team when you beat them. But it's just part of it. I mean, until we go to bowl games, consistently beat SEC and top-tier opponents, that's just what's going to come.
No doubt about it. Well, we have plenty more here with Dane Sanzenbacher. Let's hear it for Dane Sanzenbacher, still out here with us tonight. We will have more with him when we come back. And then Reedy and I are going to get into it again. The 4-down debate will occur, and we will see who wins. We even are going to bring some mascots into it this week. And if you have any questions for Dane, start thinking about them. We may allow you to fire some at him when we come back a little bit later. But right now, take a quick break, and we'll be back on Beyond the Stripes with Paul Daugherty, presented by JoeSpotto.com.
Chris, how you doing? Hey, what's happening? This place looks awesome. Brand new showroom, brand new service department. Now all I need is a new caddy. And I'm thinking the North American Car of the Year, the ATS right here. What do you think?
Nice car, Chris, and only $299 a month. But a guy your size, you need the comfort, the technology that this car has. The XTS for only $399 a month.
For $100 more, I can do this?
$100.
I'll win that from you on the golf course. Come on, let's do it.
Compliments of Camargo Cadillac.
Where should we go to eat tonight?
How are the Reds doing?
What time does the movie start?
Did you hear about the new Bengals
Check
player?
out this photo gallery.
Did you check out the bands coming to the
story.
Sure, what?
If you don't read the Inquirer at Cincinnati.com, you're missing out on what everyone's talking about. Breaking news, the best local events calendar, and in-depth stories. Updated all day long. Subscribe now at Cincinnati.com/subscribe. The Inquirer at Cincinnati.com. It's what everyone's talking about.
The Moerlein Lager House is Cincinnati's premier brew pub. The restaurant features impressive lunch and dinner menus, as well as a wide selection of beer and other drinks. The Lager House is also proud to continue Cincinnati's brewing heritage by brewing their own fresh craft beer on site. Conveniently located along the riverfront, the Moerlein Lager House offers spectacular views while you dine. Moerlein Lager House. Celebrate the past, taste the future.
At the Moerlein Lager House, I am Paul Daugherty. This is Beyond the Stripes and is presented by josephauto.com. Now we debate. I get to judge you two guys again.
Do
This
it.
is awesome. We have 4 questions. You use your powers of persuasion, and I will make the call on who is more persuasive. And I accept any and all bribes as I do every week.
Well, it's apparently the only way Joe can win because I won last week in a bribe-free environment. So I'm the whole wallet, Joe.
Shot. You have no shot right now. The first question is, Joe Reedy, the best Battle of Ohio in your memory.
1980, regular season finale, Riverfront Stadium. Browns needed a win to clinch the AFC Central. They did it 27-24 over the Bengals. First playoff trip since 1972 on a Don Krokoff field goal. The epitome of the cardiac kids. The height of the Cold War between Art Modell and Paul Brown. And it happened against Forrest Gregg, too.
You know, that's great. I like old football where there's lots of running and field goals. You know what I liked? 58-48 at Paul Brown Stadium where Rudy Johnson, who didn't love Rudy Johnson when he was running all over the place? 202 yards, 2 TDs. It was one of those Rudy games. He didn't even have time to be on his bike because he was too busy running all over the place. Kelly Holcomb had 413 yards and threw 5 TDs, but ended up the GOAT when Delta O'Neal had a pick 6 to put the thing away at the end. I like offense. I like points scored. I like excitement. That's why I like 58-48. Best Battle of Ohio game ever.
I like the second question better than the first. 4th and 1, first quarter on Sunday in Baltimore. Go for it or punt?
Well, I think to me, this was a punt situation. I feel like it's early in the game. When you're the better team, and I think the Bengals viewed themselves as the better team going into this game, you don't give an opportunity on the road early in a game for another team to come out and be just given the momentum. And that's what happened. Every player we talked to, by the way, on Monday claimed that to be a huge point in giving the momentum and then going down 17-0. I think you play it safe. You love Kevin Huber and the work he's done. Our favorite friend of the program, Clark Harris, who zinged a ball off you last week, has done nothing but unplayable snaps. You go with your special teams and let them pin them.
Go for it. You go for it. You run the ball. If you can't get a yard in that situation, how good are you anyway? You had momentum early in that drive. You just keep the foot on. You keep the throttle on. You be aggressive. You try to take control early, and you count on your defense to be able to make a stop.
Are you growing a beard, by the way? I just want to know. You're growing a beard. Third question. Who has a better defense, Joe Reedy? The Bengals or the Browns?
You realize I'm in a no-win situation here, Doc.
No, you have a good chance of winning tonight.
I'm actually going to say Ray Horton's unit. It's young. It's developing. It reminds me of the early Bengals teams under Zimmer where the personality of that team is the defense. You look at Phil Taylor. You look at Joe Hayden, who's one of the premier cornerbacks in the game now. I think he's held top receivers to 20 catches, no touchdowns. Those linebackers are aggressive. They got Bartavius Mingo, a young guy. It's a young, aggressive defense, and right now they're better.
Plus, you're a Browns fan.
I would just like to make an announcement that Joe Reedy, the Browns fan, just picked the Browns defense as better than the Bengals defense. Boo appropriately. Thank you. I don't really know what else I have to say except for how do we judge defenses? Do we rank them? I think we actually do rank them. The NFL keeps a number of good statistics. And by the statistics, who is ranked as the better defense right now? Bengals 4th, Browns 5th. I don't need to be making judgments. I can just look at the numbers. The numbers say that the Bengals are the better defense than the Browns, and I think that's pretty easy case to solve.
All right,
2 weeks ago, Browns defense beat the Ravens. Sunday, Bengals defense couldn't get it done.
In Cleveland. A little different playing in Cleveland as opposed to doing it in the crab cake.
Let's move on. We have to move this along. We've been told to move this along.
Yes, move it along, Doc.
Now, I got no idea what this next question means. Paul Daner had to explain this to me, so you're going to have to put up with me. And it has something to do with Dane's presence on the panel here. If Brutus and Rufus, the mascots for Ohio University and Ohio State, who apparently clashed before a game featuring OU and OSU a few years ago, right?
Clash is the one way to put it.
Whatever the heck they did, I don't even know what I'm talking about here. If Brutus and Rufus fought again, Paul Daner, who would win? And why should we care, by the way?
We shouldn't care, but,
Thank you.
But Joe and I care. And here's the point. I am a strong Ohio University graduate, and there was a Bobcat who, he wasn't even a Bobcat. He spent a year acting as Rufus the Bobcat just to get one chance to brutally attack Brutus the Buckeye from behind and cheap shot him in an end zone in front of Dane Sanzenbacher and punch him in the face, beat him royally in front of the players. If you have that kind of dedication coming to putting another guy down, that kind of scrap, that kind of intensity, you can't lose. So Rufus, in a rematch, wins again.
Let it be known that Paul Daner, the OU graduate, took OU to win in that situation.
As I should.
If I'm looking for an edge in this, I'm going with Brutus at home. That giant head, which he could headbutt the Bobcat and knock him senseless. Plus, just knowing in a return trip, my friend who I went to high school with is one of the cheerleading coaches at Ohio State, so I would hope that she would teach him up better this time.
Are you claiming a second? Is this going to be like a wrestling event where the second guy comes out of the stands with the chair and takes out Rufus?
I'm claiming MMA moves by Brutus and a giant head for the headbutt, but Dane, we got to ask you, what moves could Brutus use in a rematch?
Even in this segment? Okay. I mean, I don't know about moves, but I think in a chance to prepare, I think Brutus is going to get the edge. I mean, the guy had a year to prepare, and he didn't even win by that much in the first fight.
He took him out pretty good. I mean, he had him down. He was punching him in the face. Brutus didn't know what was going on.
I don't think it was as decisive as you're saying.
We'll check the YouTube after that. We'll see what actually happened.
I think I need a gavel. Can I get a gavel next week?
Get this man a gavel.
I mean, we've gone way too long with a question like that, all right? First question, best battle of Ohio, Joe Reedy is right, 1980.
Oh.
Number two, second question, I always go for it on 4th and 1, Joe Reedy is right again. Third question, who has the better defense, Bengals or the Browns? I side with Paul Daner on this. The Bengals have the better defense at the moment, even with all these guys hurt. Number 4, I really don't care about, so that one doesn't count. Therefore, Joe Reedy and his thick wallet wins the debate this week. Thank you, Joe. Give me the wallet.
Thank you, Doc. You're a terrible judge. But we hope that you will be reformed your ways and not have to resort to being bribed every week next time. But Lindsay, I believe that you are around. You have something you're going to tell us a little bit about the AFC North. What do you got, Linz?
First, the Bengals defense is so much better. This is the history of the AFC North from Nair Jinx.
The AFC North division, consisting of the Cincinnati Bengals, Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens, and Pittsburgh Steelers, was created in 2002, but dates back to 1970 in the AFL-NFL merger. The Browns, Steelers, and Baltimore Colts joined the AFL teams in the new American Football Conference. The Browns and Steelers combined with the Bengals and Houston Oilers to create the AFC Central Division. In 1995, Jacksonville joined the division. In 96, the Browns moved to Baltimore and became the Ravens. In 97, the Oilers moved to Tennessee. In 99, the Oilers became the Titans, and the Browns were reborn as an expansion team. In 02, the Central was renamed the North, and the current lineup was set. These 4 teams in town share many connections, the most prominent being Bengals founder Paul Brown. Brown is an Ohio football legend. He was the quarterback at Miami University in 1928-29. The teams he coached at his alma mater, Massillon Washington High School, were dominant, winning 6 consecutive state championships and 4 national titles. He guided Ohio State to its first national championship in 1942. During World War II, Brown enlisted in the Navy and served as head coach at Great Lakes Naval Training Station. It was there that Brown agreed to coach Arthur and Mickey McBride's team in a new pro football league, the All-American Football Conference. The star-studded Cleveland Browns won 4 AAFC titles, and when the league folded, they joined the NFL in 1950. The Browns' first opponent, and Paul Brown's first NFL win, came against the Philadelphia Eagles and head coach Earl Greasy Neal. Before his Hall of Fame career as a football coach, Neal was an outfielder for the Cincinnati Reds. He batted .357 for the Reds during the infamous 1919 World Series. With such a large footprint in Ohio, it's easy to forget that Paul Brown's coaching career actually began in Baltimore. After graduating from Miami, Brown coached at Severn School, roughly 15 miles from the Ravens' current home, M&T Bank Stadium. The Ravens were brought to Baltimore by former owner Art Modell, filling the void created when the Colts moved to Indianapolis in 1984. Modell bought the Browns in 1961 and fired Paul Brown after the '62 season, replacing him with assistant coach Blanton Collier. Collier grew up in Paris, Kentucky, and graduated from Georgetown College, where the Bengals held training camp from 1997 to 2011. He was the head coach at the University of Kentucky from 1954 to '61 and is the last football coach to leave UK with a winning record. Collier became the only head coach born in Kentucky to win an NFL championship when the Browns upset the Baltimore Colts in 1964. Paul Brown returned to pro football with the birth of the Bengals in 1968. He was involved in the design of both the Browns and Bengals uniforms, and according to his autobiography, the key principle for the first Cincinnati uniforms was nothing too flashy. Before the stripes, their games looked like intra-squad scrimmages. The expansion Bengals earned their first win when they beat the Steelers in the 1968 preseason. During Paul Brown's tenure, the Bengals had 7 playoff appearances, 5 division titles, and played in 2 Super Bowls. Brown isn't the only coach fired in Cleveland to find redemption in Cincinnati. Forrest Gregg coached the Browns from 1975 to '77. In 1980, Brown hired him to coach the Bengals, and he led the team to Super Bowl 16. The Bengals' first playoff game was in Baltimore against the Colts, who were coached by Don McCafferty, a Cleveland native who played for Paul Brown at Ohio State. The Colts went on to win Super Bowl V, their 3rd championship in Baltimore. The first 2 were with head coach Weeb Ewbank, who preceded Brown as the quarterback at Miami, was an assistant to Brown at Great Lakes and in Cleveland. The Colts coach between Ewbank and McCafferty was Don Shula, who played for Paul Brown in Cleveland, Ewbank in Baltimore, and spent a year on Blanton Collier's coaching staff at UK. Shula's son Dave was the Bengals head coach from 1992 to '96. John Harbaugh, Baltimore's current head coach, was born in Ohio and played college football at Miami. He was an assistant at the University of Pittsburgh and the University of Cincinnati. Mike Tomlin, the Steelers' current coach, was also an assistant at UC and was born across the Chesapeake Bay from Baltimore in Hampton, Virginia. Steelers defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau is a London, Ohio native that played at Ohio State and was drafted by the Browns before a Hall of Fame career with the Detroit Lions. He joined the Bengals as an assistant coach in 1980, went to the Steelers in '92, then came back to Cincinnati, where he served as head coach from 2000 to 2002. Browns coach Rob Chudzinski, like Harbaugh, was born in Northwest Ohio. His defensive coordinator, Ray Horton, played for the Bengals from 1983 to '88. Horton returned to Cincinnati in '97 to serve on LeBeau's defensive staff and followed LeBeau to Pittsburgh in 2004. Chuck Noll was Don Shula's defensive coordinator in Baltimore when the Steelers hired him to be their head coach in 1969. The Browns drafted Noll, a Cleveland native, out of the University of Dayton, and he won 2 NFL championships playing for Paul Brown from 1953 to '59. After leading the Steelers to 4 Super Bowl titles, Noll retired after the 1991 season and was replaced by Bill Cowher. Cowher also played for the Browns and was an assistant coach in Cleveland. Pittsburgh native Marvin Lewis joined Cowher's first Steelers staff in 1992 after 2 years as an assistant at the University of Pittsburgh. He left to be the Ravens' first defensive coordinator in 1996 and was hired by Mike Brown to replace LeBeau as Bengals head coach in 2003. With the kickoff of each new division game, new chapters are written in the stories of the tangled teams and towns of the AFC North.
All right, that was informative and long. But is everybody taking notes there? There will be a quiz afterwards. Make sure that you have your notes ready. It will be open book, obviously. We will not make you recite that. But we've got to preview the Cleveland Browns here. So let's talk a little bit about it. Dane, the first game against Cleveland was the most that this offense has really struggled all year. What were they able to do in that game, in your mind, that was able to slow you guys down so much?
They're always a tough defense to play, and I think, as Reedy said earlier, they're very talented, especially on the back end. I think their DBs had a great game against us. Up front, they played tough too. I mean, I can't peg it to one specific thing they did, but they definitely came to play that day, and we always seem to see a different Cleveland Browns defense when it's at home.
Right.
Well, to me, this game is suddenly more important than it needed to be. If the Bengals had taken care of business in either of the last two games, this one would because it's Bengals-Brown, would have added significance, but it would not be as crucial as it seems to be right now. So I guess my question to you, Joe Reedy, since you're a Browns fan, is this the best Browns team since they've come back into the league?
I'd still say 2002, Doc. That's the last time the Browns swept the Battle of Ohio with Tim Couch and I think the talented receivers. I think Jason Campbell gives them a lot of confidence. As long as the quarterback isn't Brandon Whedon, any of us could quarterback it, and I think they'd have confidence on offense. Defense, probably the best Browns defense since they've come back. But I still think the running game struggles, the receivers inconsistent, where I think that's what it's going to come down to, whatever offense is better. Jordan Cameron, more teams are learning to scheme him. He didn't play well in the Baltimore game 2 years ago. But I think if you can contain the Browns' running game and those receivers who are erratic, Bengals should have a good shot in this one.
But really, Dane, I guess, how do you attack the second? When you have Joe Hayden, how does that change them? Change attacking anyone because he's so good as a shutdown corner. He can just take away your top weapon.
Right. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing is that when you have a guy that you trust to guard the other team's best receiver one-on-one, I mean, it opens everybody else up. Whether that's going to be the case on a consistent basis against AJ, I don't know. I mean, I think, he's one of the best in the league for a reason, and I wouldn't put one guy on it, to be honest. So, we'll just have to see how it happens. Obviously, you're aware of a guy as talented as Joe Hayden across the ball. But we always feel as an offense, I know it's cliche, but we feel it's about what we do. We don't try too much to react to what they're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we're going to come right back here from the Moerlein Lager House. Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight. But we are not quite done yet. We're going to give you guys a chance to enter the equation. If you have a question for Dane Sanzenbacher, start thinking about it. Let's start lining it up, and you can fire it at him. And we might have a little prize for whoever asks the best one. We'll see how that goes. Also, Doc will have many good nuggets of information for you, which we'll talk about. So we'll be right back here from the Moerlein Lager House on Beyond the Stripes, presented by josephauto.com.
Chris, how you doing?
Hey, what's happening? This place looks awesome. Brand new showroom, brand new service department. Now all I need is a new caddy. And I'm thinking the North American Car of the Year, the ATS right here. What do you think?
Nice car, Chris, and only $299 a month. But a guy your size, you need the comfort, the technology that this car has. The XTS for only $399 a month.
For $100 more, I can do this?
$100.
I'll win that from you on the golf course. Come on, let's do it.
Compliments of Camargo Cadillac.
Where should we go to eat tonight?
How are the Reds doing?
What time does the movie start?
Did you hear about the new Bengals
Check
player?
out this photo gallery.
Did you check out the bands coming to the
seriously
Cincinnati Bengal?
great.
It's
a
story.
Sure, what?
If you don't read the Inquirer at Cincinnati.com, you're missing out on what everyone's talking about. Breaking news, the best local events calendar, and in-depth stories. Updated all day long. Subscribe now at Cincinnati.com/subscribe. The Inquirer and Cincinnati.com. It's what everyone's talking about.
The Moerlein Lager House is Cincinnati's premier brew pub. The restaurant features impressive lunch and dinner menus, as well as a wide selection of beer and other drinks. The Lager House is also proud to continue Cincinnati's brewing heritage by brewing their own fresh craft beer on site. Conveniently located along the riverfront, the Moerlein Lager House offers spectacular views while you dine. Moerlein Lager House. Celebrate the past, taste the future.
Welcome back. The Bengals have made Sunday's game against the Browns harder than it needs to be. By dropping 2 winnable games in the last 12 days, they've made a win Sunday almost mandatory. Or so you'd think. This time of the year, the NFL becomes as much mental as physical. The teams that believe they can overcome injuries, bad luck, and occasionally themselves are the teams that succeed. which is why Marvin Lewis has stayed so upbeat since Sunday. Lewis praises his players' effort in losses because he knows they have enough talent to win every week, provided their confidence doesn't waver. Thus, the mantra, don't flinch. It's Lewis's latest take on his favorite topic, which is perseverance. Keep shoveling, keep chopping wood, keep playing, don't flinch. You might think praising effort after a loss is wrong. At this level, effort is expected. Winning is praised. But Lewis is right in his approach. His team is good enough to win each week, but it has to believe that it can. So he encourages that belief. Guys?
Thank you, Doc. This was a hot topic on Monday, Joe, and you were asking Marvin these exact type of questions. What do you feel about how he sort of addressed that concept?
Well, I asked him about past teams, whether they would have quit. Down 17 at Baltimore at halftime. And after a couple chuckles, it's like, come on, Marvin, give me a sound bite. He kind of acknowledged that past teams would. And this is the third double-digit second-half lead they had. Green Bay came back. Miami came back. Didn't win, but came back. Baltimore, down 17, came back and made a game of it. I just think this, out of the 5 years I covered them, this is the first team that I remember that if there's a bad play, just go on to the next one. And I know there were a lot of people under the first half, 3 timeouts. Why not be aggressive and try to go for it? But you're getting the ball beginning of the second half, make your adjustments, come out, it's still 17. And I think it works. And I think this team is, with as much as we've seen the past 3 years, it's pretty good amount of mental fortitude.
And you look at what it has taken to beat the Bengals, overtime. It's taken last-second type moves. I mean, it's not like outside of really the Cleveland game, it has taken significant efforts for teams to overcome the Bengals. And if you do that enough, you're going to win a majority of the games. And guess what? If you're above 8-8 in this league, most of the time you're going to make the playoffs.
Well, like I said, this is, and I agree with Joe, this is a different team. This is a more resilient, more mature team than we're used to seeing here. I think Marvin Lewis understands that, and he wants to make sure that his players understand that. And the way to do that is to spin it to the media like, we're still pretty good. I'm proud of my guys for not quitting, although to me and to almost anybody else, I would think quitting is not an option if you're a paid professional athlete. That just, you don't get praise for playing hard. It's not Pop Warner. But on the other hand, yes, this team needs to keep its confidence and remember that it is the best team in this division and not to lose any of that confidence just because of a couple of bad games.
And on that note, Dane, I guess we should ask you, you're in the locker room. You've been on other teams before. Is there a difference in character and resilience in this team compared to others that you've been on?
Yeah, I would say there is. I mean, I think, and I'm only basing that off of what I've seen on the field. Obviously, you've got guys, paid professionals, they're going to gut it out until the end. But the way in which it's been done, obviously, we're not sitting in the locker room finding any moral victory in losing in games in overtime. Make no mistake about that. We want to win these games, but I think it says something about the guys in that locker room that not only was it, and I think Marvin may be getting to the point where not only that they keep fighting, but we're not fighting each other. I mean, it doesn't get to a point on the sideline where it's finger pointing. And that's probably more so than, the fighting on the field. Obviously, that's expected of us. But the fact that it's not coming to blows on playing the blame game on the sideline.
Well, we want to give our crowd here a chance to enter the mist. We're going to play a little bit of Ask a Sanzenbacher. So we're going to bring in Lindsay, and she's got some people out there at the bar tables. What do you got, Linz?
I do. We have several people that want to ask a question to Dane. First, what's your name?
George.
What's your question for Dane?
My question, first, go Bucks. I'm a Buckeye. Aside from playing to smaller crowds, what's the biggest change going from Ohio State to the NFL?
Biggest change? Yeah. We get paid here is a pretty big change. Legally. I'm just kidding. I didn't get paid. Yeah, I mean, there's a few big differences. Obviously, the stadiums are the stadiums. I mean, you don't really notice the difference there. I think it's a lot different in college. You kind of get to go through your 4 years with the same group of guys. You kind of get to build those relationships a little bit more and form that unity. Here, you may have different guys rotating in and out, and you have to take it upon yourself to make that chemistry happen. So it's a little bit tougher on this level, and you have to take a little bit more effort at it.
All right, another question for Dane. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name's Herb. My question is, I've been a Bengals fan forever. This is actually a really great team. How close are we to get to the Super Bowl?
That's a big question.
You know, we think we're real close. I think we have all the talent in the world to do so. I think, you know, there's never the issue there. It's just an issue of getting it on the field. And I think once we get things cleaned up, we're well on our way.
All right, last question. What's your name and what's your question?
Jason, I would just...
The mic, what did he say?
It cut out a little bit. He said he would like to welcome you to Cincinnati.
Oh, thanks, man.
No problem, man.
All right. Well, hey, I want to thank everybody for asking questions of Dane Sanzenbacher. And thanks everybody for coming out here tonight to the Moerlein Lager House. I'll tell you what, announcement here, in case you haven't seen it on Twitter, we're not next week, 7 o'clock, Moerlein Lager House. We'll be right back here again. Marvin Lewis will be our guest here at the Moerlein Lager House. Let's hear it for Marvin.
And I think we got something where Marvin can directly fire a cannon at me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when he heard that footballs were allowed to be thrown at Joe Reedy, he said, when can I be there? Next week? All right, sign me up. He's in. So we assume that will be happening. Anyway, Marvin Lewis will be here with us. Make sure you check that out, of course. Make sure you follow us on the tablet and the live app, Cincinnati.com, the blog. We're really everywhere you want to be. At Inquirer Doc, at Joe Reedy, at Lindsey Patterson, at Paul Daugherty Jr. Follow us on Twitter. We've got everything you want during the week. And we'll be right back here every Tuesday, 7 o'clock from the Moerlein Lager House. Thanks, everybody, for coming out. Thanks to Dane Sanzenbacher for being our guest tonight. We'll see you next week on Beyond the Stripes, presented by JoeSfato.com.